Well, Razorback fans, we have to ask the question on a What If Wednesday. What if Adou Thiero comes back to Arkansas? Let's talk about it on today's Locked On Razorbacks podcast.
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Razorbacks podcast. I am your host, John Nabors. I am also the host of Inside Arkansas Live, which you can catch every weekday starting at noon on Inside Arkansas and InsideArkansas.com. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Wednesday. You've made it halfway point of the week, as we will talk a little bit of the SEC baseball tournament that Arkansas will be actually playing in, and what if Arkansas wins it. But also a little college football with the Razorbacks of what if all college sports, and especially college football, played by the same rules, and if Arkansas was a part of that. So it's just a full-fledged What If Wednesday here on the Locked On Razorbacks. But this was inspired by a particular clip that I know a lot of you have probably already heard when it comes to the Razorbacks and comes to specific players, about Adou Thiero. Now, for those of you who don't remember, Adou Thiero is one of the best players Arkansas had this past season, although he did deal with a lot of injury. He was a guy that averaged over 15 points a game, about 6 rebounds a game, 2 assists a game, and hit about 55% of his field goals. He also happened to be one of the guys that was so good at playing multiple positions, could play big if you needed him to play big, could play small if you needed to play small. Just a dude, just an absolute dude at 6'8", 220 pounds. But he announced that he was going to go towards the NBA draft. I think in the beginning, people were pretty hopeful that there would be a chance of him returning, maybe to be a part of the same roster or similar roster. But when it was announced that he was going to the NBA draft, I don't think anybody was necessarily surprised or even upset in the fact that he wanted to go through this venture. You always want to see players pursue their goals and their dreams, and if they have an opportunity to do so, so be it. So this has been an ongoing cycle about players that could come back, would come back, whatever it is. And, Boogie Flan, for instance, he officially committed to Florida. And so Adou Thiero, though, he said last week in one of the most non-direct answers of all time when it came to the possibility of him returning to college, said something to the effect of, if it was up to me, the door would be shut, but it's not completely shut. It's slightly open, but that may change here later. But my people want to keep it open, but I may shut it. But it just was basically a non-answer. It's like, I could come back, but I probably won't. But I could go pro, but maybe I won't. It was just a whole no answer. And there's not surprise there. A lot of these players, they go through a lot of different things, and you try to make sense out of it, and a lot of times we can't. But then yesterday, Matt Norlander, CBS Sports, a lot of you know him for a college basketball expert, had this particular thing to say at the end of their podcast, and shout out to those who clipped it out, but listen carefully to this particular clip dealing with not only Adou Thiero, but Karter Knox.
A couple more names for you, GP. Adou Thiero and Karter Knox. I think they both wind up back at Arkansas. Maybe Knox got a little bit more positive feedback than was expected, but I guess we wait and see on that.
Oh. No guarantees in that. It's not being reported, but Matt Norlander feels that not only Karter Knox will be back, but Adou Thiero will be back to Arkansas. Now, I'm going to believe it when I see it. I think most of you should do the same thing. I believe that what has gone on with the current landscape of college basketball and the transfer portal and going pro and all of those things like that, never really know what to believe. Never really know who to believe. You don't know what people's intentions are. Is it all about the bag and money, or is it about taking it to that next step? Is it about development? What could it possibly be? A lot of different options there. But because of it being a What If Wednesday, we're going to play that game. What if Adou Thiero comes back to Arkansas? And that is going to also be under the assumption, what if Karter Knox also returns to Arkansas? Now, I want to make this clear. Where I'm at with this current roster that Arkansas has put together, it's pretty solid. It's not the best roster. I still feel like they needed to add some pieces that they needed so desperately, 3-point shooting and all of that. But it's certainly a roster that I feel good about. It's not the roster that was there last year that going into the offseason and really when transfer portal season was going on and everything, I thought it was one of the best rosters that Arkansas could ever have, all things considered. I don't feel that way about this roster. Granted, retention is a very important thing, and you did get some 2 bigs down low that you're hoping to help you out, especially offensively and defensively. But there were still some things that you needed to address. But imagine this roster, folks. Just close your eyes and imagine this being the Razorback basketball roster. You have DJ Wagner, Billy Richmond, Trevin Brazil, Karter Knox, and Adou Thiero. All back on this team. All 5 of those guys. 5 guys that you've seen wear a Razorback uniform already. Those 5 guys back. And then you throw into the mix 2 McDonald's All-American freshman guards that everyone's excited to see, as well as another really good player from the state of Arkansas, 4-star freshman. Our guy Artel, the transfer, or not the transfer, but I should say the overseas player. Add them to the mix. And then you throw in Nick Bringle and Malik Ewan, the bigs that you got out of the transfer portal. Envision that team. Envision that squad. How does that make you feel? What does that make you think about the upcoming season? Now, some of you could probably take the stance of, well, I feel okay about it, but I still would have liked to have more shooting. Or, yeah, I would have felt better about maybe getting another big-time player out of the transfer portal, throwing in one of these other guys that Cal and all them were after. But, we'll feel fine. Like, some of you may not get too pumped and excited, but let me tell you this, folks. If, and that's the game we're playing, if Arkansas was able to get those guys all to come back and that be your roster, you would be hard pressed to find many people that would not pick Arkansas to be one of the favorites to win the SEC, because you have a lot of dudes. I mean, if you think about it in this perspective, who would be the worst player that would actually play on your team next year? I'm not talking about walk-ons. I'm talking about guys that would actually get on the court and contribute. Who would be the worst one? Are you talking about Billy Richmond? Would he be the worst one? And if that's the case, who wouldn't sign up for that? Now, this team wouldn't be perfect. It wouldn't be a roster just chock full of absolute studs across the board. I get that. But it would be a roster that you are familiar with, that adds pieces to it that could really make it excel in certain ways, adding the true freshman dynamic and energy and success of these guys, of these McDonald's All-Americans coming in. And then adding the power and the prowess down low and these guys that come in from out of the portal from other schools, other places to where they've had legitimate experience at a high level. I mean, how does that not excite you? How does that not make you feel like this would be a team that could be destined for something greater? I mean, for crying out loud, the team that was there last year, the majority of the players that you felt so great about all year long would be back. I mean, you wouldn't have Nelly Davis, but I know he struggled. I know you have Jonas Adu. I know he struggled. Everybody on the team struggled, really. But all those players coming back would make me feel pretty dadgum good. It would make me feel like Arkansas is a legitimate contender for an SEC championship and more. Now, again, I don't know if this is going to happen. I still would be shocked if it did, just because it feels like it's almost too good to be true, you know? But I would love to have Adou Thiero back. Welcome him with open arms. 100%. Would love him in a Razorback jersey. And if him and Karter were to come back, all of the stress about John Calipari and the roster that he may or may not put together, whatever it is, it would all go away. It would all be forgotten, at least on my end. Because at the end of the day, it's about what the roster looks like in its finality. How does it look on paper? Well, if that's what the roster that we're talking about, folks, it would be hard for me not to get over the top, over dramatic, over excited, and start making predictions that I know I'm going to regret later. But I really want to have that feeling again. I really, really want to do that once again. The SEC baseball tournament is here. What if Arkansas wins it this year? What does it mean? Well, let's talk about it on the next segment here on the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, Razorback fans, the NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action than right now. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and to win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments? How could tracking their trends help you build your next bet? What would it look like if you combine those live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds? A lot of you feel like, hey, if you put it together, see this guy playing really well, you know it's going to happen because it's been consistent. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. There's your parlay. That's how you make some big money. And the greatest thing about it is that if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so moving on into the next segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Again, the trend of the What If Wednesdays, which I actually really enjoyed. I've always enjoyed them. I don't know if anybody's found them as fun as I have, but when it gets in the slower times of the year, it's always fun to kind of look ahead and look behind and see about these what if scenarios have played out, or if they do play out, what does it look like? And it's the same thing with the SEC baseball tournament coming up. I guess it's already started, but at least for the Razorbacks coming up this weekend. Now, Arkansas has only won the SEC baseball tournament once, and yours truly was there. It was in 2021. And I remember leading up into that point, Arkansas had already solidified themselves as the number one team in the country. They literally won every SEC series that year. I know that it wasn't as dominant. I know it wasn't one of those years that you were just like, oh man, we're killing everybody. But it just showed how good Kevin Kopps was, and also how many times you just came up with some of those clutch plays. But being a team that won 10 straight series, going into that SEC tournament, I felt like, hey, it's unnecessary. Get your rest. Get out. But I also felt like winning that SEC tournament would at least be that little checkbox. Just Dave Van Horn wins an SEC tournament. He's accomplished everything else. Wins an SEC tournament off of it. That's where it really comes down to right now. There's one thing and one thing alone that Dave Van Horn is missing. We all know what it is. But the point is I remember going into that series or into that SEC tournament feeling like I didn't care if Arkansas lost, but I really wanted them to win just one time, just to say that they did. And they did. Beat Tennessee. Seems like a reoccurring trend. But now here we are in 2025. The Razorbacks ended with the number 2 seed overall in the SEC. The format's a little bit different this year. A lot more single elimination than the nonsense they did before, which I'm fine with. But now it becomes of, okay, well, Arkansas playing on Friday. They got to win 3 games, essentially. Just 3 games, 3 straight games to win the SEC title. So say they do that. Say if they go out there, they win the SEC title. What does that mean? Absolutely nothing. Just being honest. Absolutely nothing to me. Now, it may mean something to the team. It may mean something to the players, something to the coaches, something to Dave Van Horn, and maybe even something to you. But it means nothing to me. I cannot tell you how little I care about SEC tournaments in the sports if it doesn't equate to the NCAA tournament successes following. What I mean by that is if you're a team that won the SEC tournament but lost in your regional, what does that matter? That year I brought up in 2021, you remember it. I remember it as a year that you lost in your own super regionals, and it was devastating. Lost to NC State. There may be some of you who don't even remember the fact that Arkansas won the SEC tournament that year, which is my whole point. At the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. What would that do to Arkansas seeding? Well, it wouldn't matter. I mean, if you look at D1Baseball.com, they have Arkansas already as a 2 seed, and I know they're not the ones that end up deciding it, but they've been pretty accurate so far. They have Arkansas as a 2 seed. I would have a hard time believing that if Arkansas won the SEC tournament, then they would just bump them up to that 1 seed. I doubt it. But even if they did, who cares? What does it matter? Arkansas, to my knowledge, has never been the 2 seed. So that would be kind of fun, kind of unique. And sure, you'd have another piece of hardware to bring home, and that's great. That's fine. But if Arkansas goes 0-2 and barbecue in this thing, or 0 for, if they lose out, they get out of here. I am absolutely fine with it. No sweat, no problems from me. It's not going to change my mind on what I feel like Arkansas is going to do in the regional or beyond. It's not going to change anything on that. And if they win it all, they win the SEC tournament, that also is not going to change my feeling at all for the Razorbacks postseason hopes. I'm going to be on pins and needles the entire time in the regionals. You are too. Because we know what's happened the past 2 seasons. We are going to be sick to our stomachs, just hoping to navigate ourselves through. There is zero reason to add to that own stress level by being worried about a few games in a meaningless SEC tournament down in Hoover, Alabama. Just do whatever it takes to stay healthy, stay ready, stay focused, and get after the thing that matters, which is getting out of your regional, getting out of your supers, and getting back to Omaha. That, my friends, is what matters the most to me. What if everybody played by the same rules, though, in college sports, especially college football? We'll talk about that. So stay with us here on Locked On Razorbacks podcast. All right, so moving on into the next segment and the final segment of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, keeping with the themes of the what-if scenarios, right? Because those are fun. I enjoy it. What if all college sports played by the same rules? Now, a lot of you are probably wondering, what in the world am I talking about? Well, this is something that if you look back to my discussions I've had about NIL and everything and about the rev share that's coming up, I find it very humorous that people actually think in some capacity, in any capacity, that having the that having the revenue sharing across all of college sports is going to be the only money that ever gets spent on athletes. It's like, oh, well, we had $80 million coming in a year ago, but we can only do 20.5 now there, Jerry. So thanks, but no thanks. We can't take your money. Does anybody really think that that's going to happen? No. Which has been one of my biggest arguments when it comes to Arkansas and the way that they're approaching and viewing the revenue share as if it's some life preserver that's getting thrown to them. It's not, because even if all schools are going to adhere to that, which it still could be shaky that it ends up happening. But even if that doesn't happen, or if it does happen, you can't sit here and tell me that nobody is going to go above and beyond and overpay and break the rules, bend the rules to their favor of providing talent and big-time players to their favorite sports. You know why? Because it's been happening since the beginning of time. I mean, they have an entire freaking documentary about it with the Pony Express against SMU. That was in 88. I think it was 98. Yeah, 88. The 80s, late 80s. They had that going on then. And does anybody really think that when they got busted in the death penalty, that just stopped? No. For crying out loud, just 5-10 years ago, every school was doing it. Every major school was doing it. Big time schools were doing it. That's how they were getting the big time players. That didn't stop them. Death penalties didn't stop them. Conference realignment didn't stop them. So who in the world thinks that this revenue sharing thing is going to stop anybody from putting together a heck of a roster? Who? Why? They're still going to do the shenanigans. But since it's a what if they all played by the same rules? Well, if they did, it would be parity at its fullest. It would come down to just the coaching. Plain and simple. It'd come down to your recruiting abilities and coaching, which you say it's cliche because, yeah, that's what it comes down to. Now, yes, I know that. But I'm talking about more on the surface level of, hey, you're going to have a lot of teams that are very close in talent, but what's going to separate them? What's going to make them better? It's going to be the X's and O's. It's going to be the ability to get those Jimmies and Joes and make it to where you can budget and afford them in the right ways, because you won't just be able to overpay for one player and then have a bunch of scrubs around him. I mean, it's the ultimate team game. You got to have a lot of talent surrounding him. So all those things come into effect. It would be weird. It would almost be, I don't want to call it boring, but man, you'd see like a national championship team sitting there with like 9-3. So I don't know if that would make it better. I don't know if that would make it more fair. I don't know if for like a place like Arkansas, if that would make it better, but still, it's kind of funny to think about if that actually ever did actually happen. But we don't have to worry about it. No one's going to play by the same rules because everybody's going to bend the rules all the time when it comes to college athletics. That's what they do. I mean, the NIL thing has just been going on for decades. Now it just became legal. But yeah, you think people are going to draw the line there? Well, now NIL and revenue sharing is legal now. I guess I'll just keep my money. No. Come on. Be real. You know, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, as the old adage goes. We'll never see everybody be on the same playing field. Even professional sports aren't even like that. But it is fun to think about what that could look like, what that could be like. I'm not trying to live in that type of society, though. May the best team and the best men and the best coaches win. That's what I want to see. Appreciate each and every one of you listening in and watching into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or on Google Play. You can also get after me on Twitter at John Nabors Show for any questions, comments, concerns that you may have, and we'll keep it going from there. Same podcast time, same podcast channel tomorrow afternoon. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you then.